is my 1873 Denix lever action Winchester, and as you can see, I've completely taken it apart. The reason I did that was because there were a few things that I wanted to improve upon with this. For one, the block here should be brass. And as you know, when you get this thing, it's the same color, it's gunmetal as the rest. So I went ahead and spray painted that brass. Once it's oiled up and in there, it shouldn't wind up scraping off. The other big thing that really bugged me was the fact that the lever actually had a lot of play in it. So I wanted to take that all apart so I could eventually, when I put it all back together, I made a shim out of some sheet metal so I can work that up in there when I reinstall and again eliminate some of that play. The other thing that bugged me was the fact that the lever here actually had these casting lines. So I took my Dremel tool, went ahead and ground all that off, and as you can see, I'm in the process of polishing all of the nasty lines up out of that so it doesn't look like it went through a sander. But that's a little bit of a process that I'll get to here eventually. And the other thing, and I do this pretty much with all of the Denix, is redo the wood. Use some oven cleaner, and as you can see, the finish came right off. I didn't want to sand it because that's gonna mess up with the contours. But overall, so far she's coming along pretty good. The only pain that I had when I was actually dismantling this was this screw right here. The original screw was actually peened over, and I tried to take that little peen off, and well, it didn't work out too well for me. So I actually had to drill that out. So I kind of marred the metal a little bit and got a replacement screw, but I did re-tap it because obviously it had to get drilled out. But that's going to be a nice replacement there, and I'll use a little bit of gun bluing, and by the time I'm done, you won't even see any difference on that. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward with the plan here. I've finished up all of the metal work, took that lever and removed all of those mold marks, re-blued everything, so now I'm ready to begin trying to put all this back together. One thing I did do to make things a little bit easier is I did remove the barrel, which was real simple. It was 2 screws, the whole thing popped out, same thing with the little tube for the ammunition, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how that actually goes back together here towards the end of the video. The first step in reassembling is to take the trigger housing and the hammer and work that back into the frame, and take those aluminum pins that were knocked out and put those back into place. So I had to do that on the one side, flip it over and do it again. In order to keep those pins in place, I used some painter's tape, but please note, use a very small amount. I used too much and it actually wound up taking a little bit of the finish off, and I had to fix that. So don't make the same mistake I did. The next step is to go ahead and put that brass carrier block back in, and also that firing pin and rod. I'm now ready to go ahead and install the lever itself. So you want to put the 2 pieces together as shown and then start working them up into the housing. Likewise, I took my little washer and worked that up as well so it kind of lines up as I'm maneuvering it in. As you work that lever up and in, note the placement of where everything is supposed to align. You got to make sure that those are going into the proper places as you're putting it in, or everything's going to be all wonky on you. So you got to be careful there. You should have everything lined up as seen here before putting the screw in. The next step is to now flip the receiver over, and you're going to be putting in these little springs and ball bearings that are going to make that fun little Winchester sound as you're going back and forth. Those little bearings should look just like this before trying to attempt to put that plate onto it. And you got to be careful with that, so you make sure that those bearings get pressed down into the spring housing, and then hold everything nice and tight as you then flip the entire receiver back over to the feeder side. Now you probably noticed that when you flip it, you got to keep some pressure on that back plate, or those springs are going to push it out of alignment. Now once that's all onto the workbench, you can then place the cover plate on by inserting your finger into the magazine loader, and that should just angle itself right in nice and tight, and you can throw the screw in and you're good to go. I would recommend to finish this all up, put a little oil on the inside before you do that. So let's move on to the barrel. As you can see, what I did here was I took some 1/2 inch rebar and placed it into the recess of the Denix barrel. Put a bunch of JB weld in there to keep it in place. The purpose of this was to strengthen the barrel, but to also add weight. So when the gun is put all back together, it's actually going to weigh closer to the actual firearm that we're trying to portray here. So let's work on final assembly. You can see this is the magazine tube, all the parts laid out properly. In order to put it back together, you're going to take the magazine tube, it's going to insert in one possible way, and then you're going to take the barrel and that's going to slide in over the magazine tube, line up your holes, put your screws in, and you're good. So this is my finished 1873 Denix Winchester. The wood, just restained it, just picked a nice sort of reddish mahogany color, matches the originals pretty good, and then hit it with some linseed oil, beeswax, that kind of thing, good period recipe. For all the metal parts, I hit everything with some very high-grade steel wool, just to provide a little bit of wear to the bluing, because obviously all these little high points would be taking a lot of wear and tear on the trail and things of that nature. But overall, I think it looks like a very convincing, proper Winchester 73 now. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you.